read chapter 1 to chapter 4, then you will see, so should I, because I have an interest, for example, in Nigeria, because my parents live there, my mom and siblings still there, or is it because that IPOB are mostly from southeast where the land of my ancestors, where this person was born, this body was brought to life, then I should go against God's will. That will never happen. Because we know what happened to those that tried Jonah. And if you read Jonah 1 to 4, chapter 1 from chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, you can write it down. Jonah chapter 1 to chapter 4, and read and see how he tried to get his will or stand in the will of the Lord, and the hand of the Lord was placed upon his shoulder until he was broken. And so also, if you remember the man of Judea, man of God from Judea, that decided not to say and do as the Lord has commanded him to do, and he sent a lion to tear his body apart, the beasts of the body to tear his body apart and scatter them in the wilderness. That's in the book of 1 Kings chapter 13. Or is it Moses? Of all the prophets, there's no prophet like him. But yet he was not spared. Because if you go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 34, you will hear from verse 1 to 8, you will see from Deuteronomy chapter 34, how God himself sent him up in the mountain to see the promised land, and he died there. And why? If you want to know why he died, as he described in Deuteronomy chapter 34, from verse 1 to 8, go to read Deuteronomy chapter 32. And in Deuteronomy chapter 32, you will see what the Lord himself said about him and his behavior. If you start from verse 48 to verse 52, from verse 48 to verse 52, from verse 48 to verse 52 of Deuteronomy chapter 32, you will see that because he disobeyed God. If you remember, if you don't know the history, by the waters of in the wilderness as they were going, and he says, strike. He says, speak to the stone so that water will come out, and he went there and struck the stone twice. So God, if you have and operate in this capacity as I am, then you would understand that your life is not like every other person's and every other child and every other person's life. They have a lot of latitude to and grace and mercy of God, who I don't know, are not in a position to tell God what and how he should operate, and nobody should. But you should fear the Lord your God. So most of the time when I come and I speak and I teach, it may be over your head, but because we know that a lot of general overseers and ministers do take the message, they can break it down maybe in a manner. So your pastor, your locality, may break it down, and then when we gather, when we recline, that's why it's important to come to Bible studies. Then you'll be free to ask as much question as you want to, and then we can together in this journey have an understanding, an insight, because the Holy Bible is a mystical book and a holy book that is coded in a way that the revelation is not given to everybody. Read Matthew chapter 13, you will understand what I'm saying. So you will see that as the Lord himself spoke to Ezekiel in Ezekiel chapter 3 and verse 38, verse 18, you will see from there, you will see the warning the Lord has given unto them, unto Ezekiel, about if you don't deliver the message and serve them, and then their blood will be on your head, not to serve them, but for them to change their ways, because Ezekiel or me, nobody can serve anybody except the Lord. So that's why in this one we are dealing with the issue and the problems that is right ahead of us. So when you see the church begin to argue about things they have no business argue, but rather to focus on conversion of souls and winning souls and bringing people into the kingdom in God's business, and they begin to pursue their own self-interest, that's a conflict of interest. So which one is it? Is it for Christ or for yourself? Is it for your group or for the people? So you will know that the Lord is interested in his children. And last Sunday, we're talking about, imagine being separated from your own children, for those of you that have children. Somebody taking your children away from you. That's the way the Lord feels, and that's what bothers me. Because when my Lord grieve, I grieve, and when he's upset and angry, I am. And when I am angry, he is also angry. When I am angry, he is also angry. And then in the Sunday school today, I want us to touch on a few places. I know it's going a little bit longer. But let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 23, and we'll read from, I'm not going to read the whole Matthew chapter 23. So I'm going to read selected verses. You can study the rest on your own. And it is also in the same place where the Lord said woes and cursed the church leaders, like church leaders we have today, that deviate from the truth and continue to pursue their own glory and whatever they want to pursue. And they did that. The same thing happened in the days of Christ, and that's why he had to speak to them in the language and manner, to even call them a brood of vipers and call them different kinds of names, because they were taking and misleading people and leading them to hell instead of bringing them to God, to be reconciled and be with God the Father, to listen to the truth. They were saying things that they themselves are not doing, not setting a good example. So in Matthew chapter 23, and therefore, from verse 3 I read, therefore, whatever they tell you, do, and comply with it all, but do not do as they do, for they say things and do not do them. And they tie up heavy burdens and lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are unwilling to move them with so much as their own finger, meaning the issue might be as little as anything. And instead of them to solve the problem or help the person so that their life will be better, so that they can come and give thanks to God, they wouldn't do that. People who are elitists, and they hide in positions and powers in the church, and legacy of materialism and worldliness. And they come out to print and talk about being a servant of God. They are servant of hell, as the Matthew 23 made us to understand. So the point is that as the soldiers, in whatever capacity the Lord has